Hello and good evening. Today it is Sunday, November 14th, 2021, and if you hear that little opening theme in the background of the wind and the snowstorm, and you are a subscriber of mine, then, well, you already know what I'm going to be getting into today. So, for everybody, welcome to yet another episode of the Prototype Files, where we take a look at different prototype jerseys worn, whether it's in the NHL or it's in the NFL. And so far, I think I've only ever done one video that wasn't an NHL prototype, and that's when I covered a pair of prototype jerseys for the Slovenia Olympic hockey team back in 2014. And that's when they started switching to royal blue and lime green. So, today's episode of the Prototype Files, let's just say if you are an NHL hockey fan, this episode will make your jaw drop. Why? Because what I'm about to show you is something that when I saw it, I didn't know what to think. I was stunned that it got as far as making the prototype stage where an actual jersey was made. This is probably a one of a kind. But this is actually a Dallas Stars prototype jersey from 2011. In fact, it was actually supposed to be worn in the 2010-11 season, supposedly. But there it is. When I saw this for the first time, this photo, my jaw dropped. But as you can see, this is a Minnesota North Stars style jersey with a special Minnesota North Stars inspired D crest because the Stars have now played in Dallas since 1993. But what you are looking at here is a legitimate prototype jersey. And supposedly, the Dallas Stars wanted to follow along with the Los Angeles Kings at the time because in the 2010-11 season, they decided to bring out their original purple 1967 throwback uniform out for multiple games, including the first game of that season for both the Kings and the Canucks to commemorate the very first game in Canucks history and to also help kick off the Vancouver Canucks 40th anniversary celebrations. And at the time, supposedly, the Dallas Stars were looking at doing something similar. And this is the prototype that they came up with that they obviously never went with. So, why don't I show you viewers a photo of the back of it? So there it is. The front and the back. And notice how it has the bright athletic gold drop shadows like the Minnesota North Stars uniforms of the 70s. So essentially what this looks like to me is it looks like it was a little bit of a faux back design where it used the number font from the 70s and it used the striping of the original 1967 Kelly green sweater worn by the Minnesota North Stars. So what was this jersey supposed to be for? Was it a new full-on third jersey? Well, so far all I've ever heard is that supposedly this was meant to be a special heritage uniform to be worn, probably not for too many games, but just to be worn sparingly as a special faux back uniform to pay homage to the Dallas Stars' heritage and the Stars' history as a franchise dating back to their early years in Minnesota. I mean, the crest, the fact that they made a special crest using the arrow below the star to pay homage to the North Stars, I have to give the Stars a bit of credit on this one. The crest they came up with was definitely unique. It was a very nice homage to the North Stars, and honestly, this would have looked good on the ice. There's no doubt about that. Now, actually, there's a very interesting little video, and it's a... let me see if I can't pull it up. Okay, so there was a... This is a channel called Nostalgize, and I will post a link to their video because they interviewed the guy that actually got his hands on this amazing prototype uniform. And I want to make sure that Nostalgize, as well as the gentleman who bought these jerseys, who, if you ever see this video, I am very jealous of you. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, man. That's just awesome stuff that you were able to get this jersey. But there is a channel called Nostalgize, and these two guys were talking to this gentleman who actually lucked out, scored the hockey jersey lottery, and got a chance to buy this jersey and a different Dallas Stars prototype jersey. Oh, did I throw that in there? I'm going to talk about that one in an upcoming Prototype Files video. And that one's going to be interesting as well. And it's one that I've seen before, but the fact that an actual jersey form of it exists, not just an illustration, is really cool. But yeah, I highly encourage you to watch that interview and listen to the guy talking about it. It's a great story, and I want to make sure that those guys at that channel get all the credit that they deserve for doing that interview. Great video. I listened to it start to finish. It was so cool. But anyway, this jersey is beautiful, but I have to be honest. I am glad that the Dallas Stars did not use this. And that might surprise some of you, but you know what? It's a beautiful jersey. It really is. But I feel that the North Stars history in terms of logos and uniforms should be kept with Minnesota. But at the same time, the Dallas Stars should be the ones who have franchise records and all of that. But when it comes to the North Stars Kelly green and gold color scheme, I'd prefer if that stayed in the vault for the Minnesota Wild. But that's me. I don't expect everyone to agree. Now, as for the Stars deciding to do their own color scheme of victory green, black, white, and silver, I think that's so much better. I like that Dallas now has their own color scheme for the Dallas Stars. And I think that's better, even though I prefer the Kelly green over the victory green, and I would be open to the Stars just switching to this green instead of the more bluish hued victory green. But also, there was something from that video I found interesting too. Supposedly, the Minnesota Wild have bought the rights to the colors of the North Stars. So that's why they were able to do, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I heard it wrong from that video I was referencing earlier, but I believe that's why the Minnesota North Stars were able to wear their Kelly green and gold striped reverse retro uniform that they wore last season. And it was a great uniform in my opinion. But yeah, with this uniform, I think this would have frustrated and angered too many people. You know, if you are a North Stars fan and you saw the Stars wearing this would have been salt to the wound. It really, you know, for me, I think this is a beautiful jersey. Even the logo, it's not as good as the N-Star, but it actually, in my opinion, is a nice logo. The creativity of using the Dallas Stars star on there is a very nice touch. The colors are great. Doing a blended throwback where actually they decided to use this drop shadow font from the 70s North Stars uniforms. I got to give the Stars credit. This would have been a beautiful uniform, but I respect the Stars for not wearing this also because, as I say, I think this would have angered a lot of Minnesota hockey fans. And, you know, I just wish that the Colorado Avalanche would have elected not to do a Nordiques-based reverse retro last season, even though I agree with everybody. It was a beautiful uniform, even though I would have made the numbers burgundy with blue trim instead of blue with burgundy trim. But hey, obviously my opinion may not be yours. But, you know, I don't know. It's even with the case of the Nordiques reverse retro Colorado wore last season, Quebec does have an NHL-ready arena, and I thought it kind of sucked seeing the Avalanche wearing a Nordiques uniform, even though I thought it looked absolutely fabulous in Avalanche colors. It really did. I'm not even going to attempt to deny that it was a beautiful sweater, because it was. The Nordiques sweaters are beautiful, but I just want to see a Nordiques team wear them again. That's all. But with this, you know, I think this would have frustrated a lot of Minnesota hockey fans and a lot of North Star fans, whether they're from Minnesota or they're from somewhere else outside of Minnesota. And, you know, at the same time, though, this would have been a really nice uniform. It really would have. I don't blame people for thinking it would have been nice to have been seen on the ice. I gotta confess, I think it would have looked great. But it would have also been such a welcome change when at the time the Dallas Stars had this and this as their home and away jerseys. Man, the Dallas Stars have come a long ways. Even though I do not like their new logo one bit, boy, after wearing these uniforms for as many years as Dallas did, I am so glad these have been replaced by what they've been wearing ever since. But when the Dallas Stars, I want to say one thing. When the Dallas Stars want to do something to embrace their history, this, in my opinion, is how you do it. The fact that Dallas, the city of Dallas, Texas, has hockey history going as far back as the 1940s, that should be embraced. This Dallas Texans-inspired Winter Classic uniform they wore almost 2 years ago was an absolute gem, in my opinion. And, you know, this is what I want to see the Stars bring back. You know, I want to see the Dallas Stars do Heritage Nights wearing this uniform and not a North Stars-based uniform. I think it's better personally. I like the idea of the Stars embracing the city's hockey history and leaving the Minnesota North Stars part of their history in the past. That's how I feel, and I respect your opinion if you completely disagree with me. But, you know, this is a wonderful tribute to the hockey history of Dallas. They're the Dallas Stars now, and, you know, now that there's been a hockey team in Minnesota again for well over 20 years now, I like the idea of Minnesota embracing Minnesota and Dallas embracing Dallas. But because the Dallas Stars are the Minnesota North Stars, because they moved to Dallas. That's why they are just the Dallas Stars now, not the Minnesota North Stars. Or sorry, they're just the Stars instead of North Stars, and now they play in Dallas instead of Minnesota. That's what I meant to say. I think that what Dallas should do is do faux-back uniforms like these that embrace the hockey history of Dallas and let Minnesota have a chance to embrace the North Star colors again. I mean, if I had my way, the Minnesota Wild would rebrand as the Minnesota North Stars, and you'd have the North Stars and the Stars. But because they've been the Wild for over 2 decades, I think that's probably never going to change. We're probably stuck with Wild. And you know what? If they fix their jerseys, especially their home jersey, and they make them match each other, maybe even switch to dark green and gold like the Green Bay Packers in the NFL, I think the Minnesota Wild would have uniforms good enough that they would probably be able to more than offset the disappointing name that they went with, being Minnesota Wild. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to agree with me on that, but yeah, it's the name in Minnesota. Minnesota's team name, the Wild, in my opinion, does kind of suck. But since they've been the Wild for so long, don't count on them ever doing a name change at this point, especially after being the Wild for over 20 years. But, you know, looking at this jersey, I have to be honest, right around when they were planning on wearing this sometime in 2011, here's the thing. That's when the Dallas Stars started to have financial difficulties with their last ownership before current owner, Tom Gaglardi, bought the Stars back in, I believe, around somewhere around late 2011, 2012, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I got to be honest. There's something that I've always remembered. I remember at the time when the Stars were having ownership difficulties, and I kept looking at their horrible jerseys at the time, and I kept thinking, come on, these guys got to at least be getting some kind of new third jersey to eventually get rid of these horrid, ultra boring uniforms. But then I remember the Icethetics jersey watch that he posted right before, maybe it was even the 2011-12 season or the 2012-13, I can't remember. But it was one of those 2 years, 2011 or 2012, where he posted a Jersey Watch catalog update on his site about the Stars. And at the time, they were supposedly looking at a new third jersey. But it was scrapped, and supposedly at the time, the idea was that it was because of the Dallas Stars at the time ownership issues. So that almost makes me wonder if maybe this was that design. Maybe instead of wearing it for some heritage nights where I've heard that supposedly they didn't know if maybe how hockey fans would react, to what the reaction would be from Minnesota and the hockey fans there, the hockey world seeing the Dallas Stars wearing some type of North Stars based heritage uniform when the state of Minnesota has the Minnesota Wild as in the NHL as well. And Minnesota's had an NHL team back in their city since 2000. But I've also heard that they didn't really know how to market this. But that almost makes me wonder if maybe, even though they didn't wear it in the 2010-11 season like they had initially considered, it makes me wonder if maybe they did hold on to this design and give it one more look and see if maybe they could bring it out as a third jersey, and that never happened either. Because remember, once the Stars did scrap their third jersey plans at the time, that was right around when Tom Gaglardi bought the Stars, and then not too long after, starting in the 2013-14 season, that's when they brought in their current home and away jerseys that they've had ever since. And they've had for basically close to a decade now as I'm filming this. But anyways, I once again want to just say that, man, this is a beautiful uniform. It would have looked great on the ice. It's a beautiful jersey. It really is. But I have to be honest, I am glad that Dallas did elect not to use this. I just think it would have been such a slap in the face to North Stars and Wild and Minnesota hockey fans in general. I really do. But as I say that, beautiful jersey. And hey, the guy who got to buy this, man, that guy gets to hold and own a one-of-a-kind jersey. Kudos to you, man, if you're ever watching this video. This is awesome. Finally, the Dallas Stars obviously had some different ideas before they went with the current look that we've all have come to know for almost the past decade now. But what if I told you that there is maybe one other little prototype that has in recent months been unveiled to the world in real life form, as you can see here? Perhaps think of this, ladies and gentlemen, as a bit of a teaser to the next episode of the Prototype Files. But anyway, what do you think of my thoughts on this jersey? What do you think of this jersey? Do you think they should have worn this? Do you think I'm wrong? Feel free to comment down below. I'd love to hear your opinions, folks. But anyways, with that, I'm going to call it a wrap at this point. I hope that you enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, ladies and gentlemen, until my next video, as I always say, take care. And as always, bye for now.